Hello, everyone. I know people are still joining us, but we did want to get started. I'm Elise Nelson. I'm president and CEO of Vital Voices, for those of you who I don't yet know. Thank you all for tuning in to hear from women leaders that Vital Voices has worked with over the years in Ukraine. As we all know, and all over the news, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine is having an incredibly devastating impact on the country, but not only the country, but really the region. More than 1 million Ukrainians have already been forced to leave their home, really within just 9 days of this attack, this unprovoked, I should say, attack. Most of those people, about 500,000 people, have gone to Poland. Some have then gone elsewhere from there. Others have gone to Moldova, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, Lithuania, Estonia, and have been accepted certainly with open arms and with incredible unity. And of course, we know that those crossing the border are women and children, that men have been prevented from leaving to stay and to fight, many of them. Vital Voices Network, as many of you know, runs very deep in Ukraine and throughout the region. Back in 1997, at the first Vital Voices conference in Vienna, Austria, we had women leaders from Ukraine, including Oksana Horbunova, who I see has just joined us in the discussion here. Let me introduce the 3 women leaders we have with us from Ukraine. I know also joining us, and I'll bring them into the conversation in a little bit, are some of our network leaders from Romania, from Hungary, and from Poland, who've been deeply engaged in this work. I should also mention that just a couple days ago, Vital Voices sent a team from our headquarters out to the region to begin to assess ways that Vital Voices could support. We are already supporting our network, but what more we could do through our Urgent Assistance Fund and our crisis response team. So let me first welcome our incredible network. Oksana Horbunova is here. It's wonderful to see you, Oksana. She is a pioneering human rights activist from Ukraine. She actually led her country's counter-trafficking effort at IOM. She opened a hotline that gave voice to silenced women and helped to facilitate rescue. She really brought the issue of human trafficking not only to the national stage and prominence and awareness in Ukraine, but really the entire region and the world. One of those very, very early pioneers and early mothers of Vital Voices. So I'm thrilled to see you. I also want to introduce Olga Konchevich. She's actually been reporting live minute to minute. All of us at Vital Voices have been following her. We even put her Twitter up on our website. She's editor-in-chief of 24 Channel. She's an editor, research, media expert, and she's been cooperating with key Ukrainian media outlets to really get the story out. We're going to hear from her in just a minute, kind of to give us the perspective, really from inside the country, about what has been going on over these less than 2 weeks now. And finally, Irina Rubis is with us. She's CEO of Economica Communication Hub, which consists of 4 different segments. She works across education, events, consulting services. She's really created a platform for communications focused on leadership, transparency, and innovation. And Irina is just right outside Kyiv, so we will hear from her about the situation there. You won't see her on camera because I think, as many of you know, they need to keep lights down, and it's starting to become night there. It's about 7 o'clock there for you in Ukraine. So she is she's actually in the dark in her home joining us. Thank you so much. So why don't we first turn to you, Olga, as I've been just glued to your Twitter account, really following the minute by minute news. Can you give us an update from your perspective and from inside the country?
Yeah, thanks for having me here. It's very important now to highlight this issue of Ukraine. And if we are trying to give some big picture about the situation in Ukraine, I could say that the tough situation now in the eastern border, also Kiev region, as well as on the south, because of these messages about Kherson region, and also because of this nuclear power plant issue that maybe you read last night, when the nuclear fuel reactor was under attack. And if even if now the situation is under control, but it could be a global threat for all Europe and also for all our world, because I can say that Ukraine has 15 nuclear power station, and it's very hard to control it when someone is trying to attack you. I guess it's a very good step that Zelensky had this discussion with world leaders about the importance of Europe security, for example, with Scholz, with Andrzej Duda, with Joe Biden. And I do hope that maybe there will be some negotiations, some talks between Russia and Ukrainian side because of this radiation threat. And also, I would like to mention that now it's very important to talk about civilians, about people who now trapped in a very difficult situation, for example, in Kharkiv or in some small villages near Kiev, when they are where they couldn't even have some simple stuff or some food, or even were attacked by some Russian forces. And if we talk about some support, about some initiatives that Vital Voices could afford for Ukrainians, I could say that, for example, my community of journalists, they are now collecting all the resources about international funding, just to try to provide some support to women who now could lose their job. Because, for example, in my company, we've got this salary for the February, but like we don't know nothing about the future. And maybe after the 1 week or maybe 1 month, it will be like a very difficult question. How could we provide like some simple way of living? How could we manage with our children, with our families, and so on? So maybe if someone already knew some platforms or some special funds who is responsible for such support for journalists and for women, I will be grateful for such information. And also, like as a second issue, it's digital security, because now I see that Russian propaganda is rising with new power. Russia closed all opposition channels and tried to attack some journalists who provide really truthful information about Ukraine. And now for Europe, it's very important to create this balance between this disinformation and some important information from Ukraine. So maybe if someone will have some idea how to provide this security, this informational security for the Europe and for the democratic world, I also would be happy to discuss these ideas.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olga. Oksana, I want to bring you into the conversation. As of a few days ago, you're in Kyiv, where you have lived for a long time. You, of course, back, I'm trying to think, it was what, 2014, when you protested and really risked your life for democracy in your country. And now to see what's happening, I can only imagine how difficult it is from so many perspectives. Talk a little bit about your travel to leave Kyiv. I know it was a difficult decision. You and I talked about it many, many times back and forth. It's wonderful to see you and to know. I should mention that Oksana just arrived about a day ago in Poland. But tell us about leaving Ukraine. I know it was very difficult.
Thank you, Alice. For me, it is a big challenge to be with you and big honor. And actually, I'm so happy to see everybody. As you know, I was staying in Kyiv until last moment, but I'm living in the southwest of Kyiv, which was under effect of bombing of nearest villages. And 2 days ago, together with my neighbor, it was made decision that our husbands, they are staying at home to defend our regions. And together with my neighbor, we're going to Lviv. And it was very difficult travel, very dangerous travel. But it was from one hand, but from another hand, you know, I was so surprised how Ukrainian people united right now and how people is ready to help each other. During my trip, I was observing another women, another children traveling with the pets, with dogs, with cats in overloaded train, but everybody were helping each other. You know, the fathers came to the train station to say bye to their families, and most of men, they're staying in the houses to protect, for the protection. When we arrive into the Lviv, we met additional thousand people on a train station in Lviv, just looking for the safe place on the west part of Ukraine. And we ended up in difficult situation in cold platform without any support. And we find out that lots of trains, lots of buses were canceled because everything is overloaded. Lots of people, they tried to cross the border, but bodyguards were not, did have enough mechanism to do the checkups. And I think because of that, the transportation was stopped. And, you know, we were in so difficult situation. But I remind myself, like you mentioned, I spent so many years to develop non-government network all around Ukraine to combat trafficking and to help victims of trafficking. And we conducted many trainings. We developed so many supports for our NGOs. And standing on a cold platform in Lviv, I remind Luba Maximovich, from women's perspective, non-government organization in Lviv, I used to work with them like to protect victims of trafficking. And in that moment, I was feeling myself like I am a victim who needs support. I find out Luba telephone and I dial for her number and asked her, Luba, could you help us? And immediately I received this phone. She invited us to spend time in her shelter. She provided us tea and food. And I was again surprised how well organized. They just opened the shelter and they prepared everything to receive children, to receive women, and to support them. And whole Lviv overloaded with IDPs. Besides the Luba and other non-government organizations, including IT personnel, IT company in Lviv provide the floors, provide the possibilities to support people who are looking for the help. And West Ukraine is not so affected like East Ukraine, like Mariupol, like Kharkiv, like Kiev, like small villages around the Kiev, like Irpin, like Bucha, like Vasilki. And what Ukraine right now Ukraine needs support to close the air, to protect the air protection system. We're just asking foreign partners, please help us, because Ukrainian army is doing very well on the land, but sky is not protected. And each night is coming, and each night bring us fear that we will be under the bomb. My husband right now staying in local territory defense organization, and I know what means evening in Kiev, because they are bombing during the night. And it is first what we need. Second, humanitarian, it is most dramatic humanitarian crisis right now in Ukraine since World War II. 1.1 million people already left Ukraine. We do not know how many internal displaced people. Nobody could calculate it. It means what we need. We need humanitarian corridors. We need we need stop shooting, that we need humanitarian corridor to help people. You know, situation in Kiev, women continue to give birth underground on a metro station.
Like give birth? Give birth?
To give birth of children on metro station. Like 2 days ago, I received information to help 22 newborn babies. I have contact with Vital Voices person, Rita Haikin in Israel, and I'm sending information to her, and she trying to organize some support from Israel. Also, Rita Haikin, Vital Voices activist, she provided the list of psychologists who could help Ukrainians who need psychological support. You know, Israeli psychologists, they have a good experience because the country is living a long time in a war situation. And we organize this kind of session, and it is really helpful. They could advise. But first, what we need to strengthen Ukrainian air protection system and humanitarian assistance for people who are staying in destroyed villages, in destroyed cities, because Russians, they are shooting residential houses, they are shooting hospitals, they are shooting bridges, they are destroying the schools, kindergartens. It is most dramatic humanitarian crisis for the last 70 years. This is, and also, you know, Ukrainian society is so strong, and I observe our NGOs who previously were active on another issue. Right now, they are switching their activity into people needs. And we could walk through them. They are staying most of them, they are staying in their home cities. Some lived maybe in villages, because in villages it is more safe situation, but we could maintain this work, and we could help people who are looking for the support. And it is only beginning, because I'm keeping a contact with my local community, and I know it right now. It is already issue of bread, of food, and people looking for the very elementary possibilities to maintain the life. This is my message.
Anna, I'm so glad that you are there in Poland safe, but I know you, and you are an activist through and through, and I know you would like nothing better to be back in Ukraine, and I know you wrestled with this so much about leaving. I am glad to know you are safe, and know that we will do anything we can at Vital Voices and this larger network of people who've joined, including many of our board members, to really hear from you and from everyone else joined on how we can help. Everyone wants to help. And maybe, as you mentioned, the shelter in Lviv, maybe they need more support as they can take in more people as they're making their way maybe just to safety. I want to bring Irina into the conversation. As I mentioned before, Irina is outside Kyiv. She's
I'm in 10 miles in 10 miles length from Kyiv distance, so I'm nearby.
And just
here bombing every night, and I hate nights because they became furious and they bomb us like hell every night. So it's a really traumatic experience. I wish no one of you have ever come through. First of all, I'd like to, as far as I am originally from journalism, I want to make a parallel. What has happened to us on 24th of February is like 9/11, but happening simultaneously in 7 major cities in Ukraine, and it's never ended since then. So it's like it's a huge, unbelievable, tyrannic rape of my country, which we are fighting to stop, and our military people and civilians are like furious to protect their land. But we need to close the sky because they will just ruin everything and nobody will be able to protect the sky, the land, because they do it all night throughout Ukraine. So not only in major cities, but throughout Ukraine. Well, what else I wanted to say? I see that regarding humanitarian corridors for evacuation, we don't believe Russians at all. In 2014, there was agreement about humanitarian corridor, and they shot all people over there. So I can hardly imagine that we can believe and trust them and evacuate our people like that. What I see that all of the people are united. Everybody is helping, sharing food, money, lots of donations happening from within and from outside. Thanks for the US for support you provide us with. But for us to survive and to be the part of Europe, not to join the barbarian state, not to be occupied, we need to close the sky. And you know that the petition on Change.org gained more than 1 million signs, and I hope we will be heard. Our diplomacy works hard on it. While if talking about more ground to earth problems, yeah, we can't work. Actually, all we do is we resist. So a majority of men are fighting, and women who didn't manage to leave the country, they need to earn their living somehow, but it's not possible right now. So we are just eating our savings, and there is the perspective is very vague when it's going to happen and if we still survive. So the situation is dramatic. I will never I don't even know how can our nation survive the trauma, because every loud sound provokes ache inside your body, and you're always scared by some sound, unusual sounds. And what else can I add? That's it, I guess. That's not a nice journey.
I remember when we were talking earlier this week, you had told me you believe it is too late for you to leave.
Mm-hmm. It's more dangerous to leave than to. It's more safe to stay here, because they are the Russian barbarians. They are like unpredictable. They shoot civilians. They shoot near in one road. They stopped the car of a family which were leaving to the countryside, because it's very dangerous to stay inside cities. And they took out a 10-year-old boy out of car and shot his parents. So, and they're doing that all the time. That's not like an exception. So you never know, either on your way to evacuation, they bomb you, or they will shoot you because they're crazy, hungry, or something like that. Because military operation from Russia is not properly organized, so they're hungry. So that's why they rob our people, our shops. So they're literally barbarians. It's not civilized society.
Mm. Wow. Well, tell me what you tell your children, because I know.
Fortunately, a week before the crisis, I took my children out of my home. They are not here. They're in Ukraine, but in more safe place. But due to my work, I work a lot with teenagers. And I see that nobody cares about this future of Ukraine, this generation of Ukraine, because majority of people are taking care of infants and of small kids, and nobody talks to this generation because they are considered to be adult. What do I tell them? I actually talked a lot to people psychologists who work with teens in trauma. And I developed a guide, and currently I try to work with TikTok influencers, because in Ukraine, teenagers grab major content from TikTok, and I try to persuade TikTok influencers to contribute content on each issue, so that young people could regulate their stress, to know how to deal with panic. And because if you don't prevent trauma, it gets even worse. So there are tools to protect them. And what I tell my kids, I tell them that we will win, because our nation is very brave and motivated, and we love our country. But the more we fight, the more they ask me, Mom, when it's going to happen? And I can't give them any prognosis, any date. And I even need to stabilize myself to share that positive mindset and energy with my kids. So it's a very strong challenge, and I hope we will survive.
Well, Irina, we are thinking of you, and I want to bring some of our network leaders in from the surrounding areas. I know we have some of our network leaders from Poland and also from Romania, and Hungary, who are on the line. Olana, I'd love for you to join us. I know you're in the audience, but I think we're going to try and upgrade you into the panel discussion here. We'd love for you to give us your perspective from Romania. And maybe while we're doing that, I'll just come back to you, Olga. Tell me a little bit about what you are hearing from your staff of reporters and those inside Ukraine about some of the greatest needs. We all know the need to close the sky, but beyond that, what more can this group of people on this call do for those people inside the country? What we understand is that in Poland and elsewhere, there are lots of humanitarian supports there on the border. They're letting people through. It is taking time, but there is food and shelter and support. There obviously needs to be more, but what I wonder is, how do we support, what is the best way to support those who are still stuck in Ukraine? Because the vast majority of the population is still in the country. Even though a million sounds like a lot of people, the vast majority has actually remained in the country.
Yeah, I see. I can tell you about some humanitarian aid that could be provided for Ukrainians, for example, for people from special battalions and special security forces who now protect in Kyiv and other places. For example, how I hear it from volunteers, now it's a big problem with some equipment for military people, these jackets and some sleeping bags, some medical aid and so on. And the biggest problem is that, as I heard from my friends, that all this stuff they collecting them on the border, mostly on the border with Poland. And for example, in Lviv, they have this biggest hub of humanitarian aid, and then all the stuff will come to other places. But now, when we are in the war, every day matters. So maybe just to make this process of providing this help for other region faster, maybe to communicate not only with some mayors and some staff from regional administration, but maybe to connect some big organizations and volunteers to make this process faster. Because as I heard, for example, that sometimes, for example, mayor of Lviv waiting for the signal from the mayor of Kiev. So it's like very, I don't know, it's not progressive way for dealing with such humanitarian crisis. So, for example, now I'm in Lithuania, in Vilnius, and there are many people who are ready to provide many cars of support with some humanitarian aid, but they are waiting for some opportunity just to not just to collect this stuff on the one spot in one hub, but to provide to pass this aid also to another regions and make it faster. So it's maybe some organizational problem, but now it's very important because people are waiting for this food, for this medicine, and so on. So if we talk about some practical things, maybe we need more support from, or maybe more pressure from volunteers just to make some officials to work faster, because now it's crucial to help that people.
Thank you. Oana, I want to bring you into the conversation. Oana is a former parliamentarian in Romania. Oana Vizgan, can you tell us a little bit about the situation there in Romania? I know you all have received maybe what 200,000 or so Ukrainian refugees coming across the border. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen?
Hi, Alice, and hello, everybody. The situation so far in Romania is manageable. People are getting the help that they need. So on the short term, I think that the basic needs in Romania are covered, both from normal citizens, because there was a wave of sympathy of people. So there are a lot of people just driving to the border with everything they can, put together or gather from families and friends, and just go there and help. But also companies and authorities. So the Romanian authorities have actually moved quite smoothly, I would say. So from my opinion, in the short term, we are fine with two major things to be careful with. First of all, the safety of the refugees, knowing that there are mainly women and kids. We are very careful with regards to trafficking risks, because they exist and they are real. So here we work with the very good organizations in Romania that know what they are doing, and also We work very closely with another Vital Voice fellow, Yulia Skantei, which is my colleague, senatress, and she's in touch with, in contact with us all the time, and with the Ministry of Internal Affairs here to try and prevent. And also we have made some, we have made information available for both volunteers and the people that are crossing the border. However, although right now things are covered, we have to remember that this is a marathon and not a sprint. We need to be strategic about this and think of the medium and long term, because this is not a situation that is going to end tomorrow. So far, a lot of people who entered Romania and other countries are mainly in transit. We still have around 50,000 refugees on Romanian grounds. 50% of them are minors, so kids. But the first wave were the ones who had some money, who have some relatives in somewhere in Europe, so they are transiting and going to meet other members of the family. But now we expect to have to see or to have this flow increasing in the coming days and weeks, with people that might actually be in a critical social situation. And that's where we need to start to be ready, because as I said, we need to plan this in different waves. People that today are volunteering will get tired. They already start to show stress symptoms. NGOs in Romania today are helping, but only with their own finances. So their finances will go dry, and businesses will finally, go back to their core activities, and will not be able to support this in the longer period. What I'm saying is that we need to be ready at that point, where people that are in a bad social situation will start coming out of Ukraine, where they need social security, social help, jobs, and even schools for kids. Of course, the European Union is showing a lot of support, but we expect, or it's an estimated 7 million refugees that will depart Ukraine. So it's 7 million, we have already seen 1 million, 7 million people that might actually not have a place to go back to in the near future. So if we want to help, I think we need to start planning for medium and long term ways of dealing and helping.
Absolutely. And it's always honestly so inspiring to hear how our network is connected throughout the region and hoping to support each other. So thank you so much for that. I wanted to oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to let Irina and the other sisters connected know, because we spoke, last time about a guide for psychological help for those who stayed in Ukraine, and how parents could help their children affected by war. We have managed to put together a team of therapists, psychologists and therapists in Romania, and we are actually, as we are speaking, building this guide. We have already a translation made, so hopefully this will be something that we will be able to spread quickly, and we hope to be helpful for the people who are today in a bad situation in Ukraine.
Thank you, Ona. Appreciate that. I want to introduce Victoria, who's joined us. And hello, Victoria. As some of you may know, Victoria is she is a web developer, tech developer. She's actually been building the Vital Voices Network Hub, and of course, in the midst of
yes, sorry for interrupting. And I am in Ukraine. I'm in central Ukraine. I'm here with my family and my relatives, and here we are. I have mentioned several things that I wanted to add to Olga's conversation and the conversation of the previous speaker, because our people, Ukrainian people, they are terrific. I don't know, we have such a statement in our country that we have in Ukrainian code Nazi, nation code. What does it mean? People like their country, and they stay here to become. They want to stay here. Not many people want to go abroad, and they are staying in our country, and they are trying to survive, and they are working also here. Core issues in our city. I am living in central Ukraine. It's Kremenchuk city. A lot of refugees from Kharkiv and Kiev are here, and probably all of my relatives and friends, they are working with people who are riding from the one part of the our country to the another, and it's really terrible. And we have a lot of volunteers, and we have a lot of support, not only from Ukrainian government, but also from all of the Europe, and we feel this support also. But one of the issues that I have mentioned earlier, it's the problems with insulins and the problems with some specific medical things that are needed for people's health, for those people who cannot live with such medicines. And it's really, we have a lack of these things. And the another is, probably I will tell some strange things, because we have developers who are now at Kherson and in Mykolaiv and in Kiev and Kryvyi Rih, all those regions that are under fire. And I just wanted to note that our team is almost women developers, and so they stay at home and they're trying to work. And one of the things that we would like to have a possibility to work, because after the war began, many companies have finished their contracts with us, and not only with us, but with a lot of different organizations. And from us, we understand that all the money that come to Ukraine, they also will be like a assistance, like a help, like a support, because we need to live in this country and we need to rebuild it in future.
Well, I hope, Victoria, that you know that all of us at Vital Voices are thinking of you, and we so appreciate all the work that you've been doing to connect our larger network. So you're certainly a critical part of that network. And we haven't received any questions in the chat. I encourage people to send them in these final 8 minutes or so that we have. But we have received a lot of messages of support for all of you. So I think, I know that every single person joining this, every single person who will tune into the recording is looking for a way to support in whatever way that they can. One question I wanted to ask to Oksana, or if she's not able to get back on with us, maybe to Olga. Oksana, are you still with us? She may have had to step away, but I know she continues to move around as she's in transit. But Olga, maybe you can help us to understand this a little bit better. A lot of us have seen on social media, obviously, the incredible, hello, Oksana, nice to
Yes.
see you there. Um,
I'm in the car.
Okay, all of us have seen on social media the just obviously incredible unity of the Ukrainian people, but we also know whether it be Afghan women who had to flee the Taliban and were, the Ukrainian government was one of the first to step up and invite people to come in, even had evacuation flights that took people out. There were many students in Ukraine and refugees from other countries, African nations. And what we have heard on social media is as those people try to escape, of course, violence in Ukraine, they are met with, they feel discrimination. And, I wondered, Oksana, particularly for you, as you are making your way out of Kyiv, you obviously have incredible networks to support your journey, but were you seeing that as well, that those who are not, not maybe Ukrainian citizens or maybe refugees, that they were not being treated sort of at the same level?
In Lviv, I observed lots of foreign students who were trying to escape Ukraine, and they ended up in Lviv. And in Lviv, they were treated in very well way. What I so far observed on a train station, volunteers were proposing for everybody. Doesn't matter. It is Ukrainian students or foreign students, or it is Ukrainians. Everybody were proposed hot food, tea, and so on. I observed a group of students who were taking buses, trains, who were with me on a line to buy tickets. And it was not separation. I didn't observe any humiliation. And local people, I just was wondering, and I was speaking with local people and with NGO, and they explained me the students, and they are from different countries all around the world. But in Lviv, I observe very good and positive attitude towards the foreigners. I do not know what is going on the border between Ukraine and in another country. I was not able to observe, but on the territory of Ukraine, I just observe equal possibility to help Ukrainians and foreigners.
I'm glad to hear that.
Like this.
I don't know, Olga, if you've seen.
I also would like to add that why I mentioned the thing with the Russian propaganda, because it was the main narrative, like in the last few days, this story about some human rights violation in Ukraine. But I also didn't observe any injustice regarding these Asian or African students. As I know, we also established like a special emergency phone line for that students. They could ask some protection, maybe some small even money allowed for some for taking some car, or also they could use these evacuation trains and so on. So I guess maybe the main problem, maybe it's also our fault. It also was our problem of journalists, that we didn't highlight this issue in a proper way, and maybe we need to write some articles and translate it in English just to provide this true information, because now Russian propaganda trying to provide this bad image of Ukraine in the world. But I also didn't observe any like cruel attitudes, and I don't agree with this statement that we are.
I think that the majority of what all of us see is incredible unity of people, and obviously the incredible courage of your president. I mean, truly, it's astounding, his leadership, and I think what that inspires in the people of Ukraine. I think everyone around the world sees the strength and the love that you have for your country and for each other. I know we only have about 3 minutes left. Really the only questions and comments we seem to be getting in the chat is just, again, wanting to know how people can help. I will mention that Vital Voices continues to track women leaders in our network throughout Ukraine. We are looking, we have supported women in Ukraine and supporting those who are providing assistance on the border, but we want to do more. You can donate directly to that fund if you'd like, but we will also provide resources in terms of where then those funds are going if we deem it safe to do so. For some that are going directly to those who've been victims of violence or just in need of support, we wouldn't be able to do that, but certainly to organizations. And I see that Linda Roth, our Chief Communications Officer, put that link in our website, different ways to get involved, to donate. And we certainly hope that you do to join us. And we will continue to talk to our network and get ideas of where the best places to provide those resources are. And I think, as it was said by everyone on this call, this is definitely not a sprint. It really is a marathon. We know with any crisis that it is long-term, and we have to have that long-term commitment long after it leaves the news headlines. So thank you all for joining us. If you have any closing words, I think I know everyone would love to hear them. Oksana, are you trying to say something there? You're muted, Oksana, if you're trying to say something. Oksana, you're muted if you're trying to say something.
Hope we will survive and meet each other in normal reality offline.
Thank you so much, Irina, for joining us. I know it's we're all thinking about you there and hoping that you continue to remain safe. And thank you all for tuning in. And I know we have so many leaders from across our network here. We really appreciate you joining us and being part of it. Thank you.